Welcome back. So, somehow, I've been working on this for the last 20 minutes. I thought the recorder was running. It wasn't running. So, sorry, but we're just going to have to pick up where I'm at now. I'm going to talk you through the changes I've been making for the last 20 minutes here. Working on the scene graph program, and I've been making a couple changes to it. Today, I want to get the saving and loading worked out. Saving and loading mostly does work out, but I am wanting to be able to have a file dialog. I was having the problem with this ellipse. Every time we save it, it was going further and further off to the left, and that is because we were inputting x and y values, but saving left and bottom. Which was a problem because every time I set the x value, it was actually, x is a virtual property where you take that value, subtract the width divided by 2, and that becomes the left. And I don't know, I might need to redo how I'm handling that. Because the original idea was that I would take these draw functions and just store all the properties related to drawing. Like what it takes to draw that thing, and then those would be the properties of my object. But the further I get in, it's actually more useful to have a different set of properties here. I was trying to resolve that by having this concept of virtual properties, where it's like we have some real properties, width, height, color, pen size, some virtual properties that have getter and setter functions. And see, I modified this to use the setters in the constructor. For some reason the getter isn't working. I'm not sure why. Although I think that the way I'm calling this is causing it to, instead of calling it on the self instance, I think it's doing the get and set on the ellipse, like the base class. And I think I can prove that because it's loading in two objects but only drawing that red ellipse. And what was that? What am I loading my state into? Scene. Oh wow. No, it's loading in a circle, but it's loading it in with a massive width and a massive height. That is kind of crazy. And somehow it's not saving it like that back to the file, so we have a couple of bugs in there. I need to clean up these object structures so it's easier to tell what's going on. For one thing, I like the idea of having virtual properties versus real properties. Like some variables can be assigned directly to an instance, and some of them you have to have getters and setters because it's like there's more complicated math going on. But if it doesn't work, then none of that, I mean, it's not a thing. I can't tell if that's working or not. Okay, another test. We have our circle. If all this is working properly, I should be able to do this. Okay, so the getter does work, at least for width. Oh, because width is a real property. The weirdness was with the virtual properties. fixes the width, so the getter and the setter is working with the real properties. And setting the x value on the circle, set the left to 90, which is right because it is 100 minus the width divided by 2. But what did it set on the ellipse? Did it set anything on the ellipse? 400, left is null. So is this thing working or not? The setter is apparently working. We can set it, but we cannot get it. Let's take a look at this again. Am I doing something that is too weird? Here I'm just calling it and it works. So theoretically, I should be able to just call the same function here. But that throws a compiler error. But grabbing it as a function reference first is causing it to get all choked up. What happens if I throw in a parameter? Still that same error. Call it, throw away the value. That works okay. It's useless. How if I assign it? This feels like a bug of some kind. Might be a language bug, I'm not sure. And now there's an error on line 49. Assigning it is making it fussy. But for getter, we really have to be able to get it. Let's go nuts with the parentheses. Nope, nope, nope. Okay. Alright, any other ideas? I'd rather not have to throw away this bit of code. I was kind of liking it. Self is unknown in this context. Why does the setter work and the getter doesn't? Alright, I'm gonna throw this stuff away. It's not working, and we'll find other ways around it later. It's taking too long. So what we're gonna do going to throw away the left and bottom properties and replace them with X and Y properties. And then when we're drawing, we'll calculate width at that point. So that's functional. And then we don't need all these virtual properties. Fixes that, and we need to do the same thing down here. Let's make sure it still works. Virtual props not found in map line 55 because I removed it. Technically, the radius is still a virtual property, and let's see. I mean, we can disassociate the circle from the ellipse and have it do its own thing. We're gonna do that. Fix that. And there's going to be some other consequences here too. Instead of saying that a circle is an ellipse, let's say that the circle and the ellipse are both just shapes. Every shape we know should have an X value and a Y value. I think that this will be a good idea. They'll all have from JSON to JSON, but they all handle it differently. So I'm going to leave that alone and also move it up here closer to the constructor. Make from JSON to JSON. Not messing with the virtual properties anymore. Circle needs its own draw function now. diameter because the width and height of a circle are the same. Actually, we don't need to divide the radius by 2. Just need to do that. Every shape should know how to draw itself. We're just going to make an empty function for that. And I guess we'll do the same for the to and from JSON. From JSON, just throwing in the X and Y. To JSON. There. Stubbing out a shape class. So what did we gain from all that? Well, we shuffled our properties back and forth. Mostly it did fix one error. So I guess that's something. And it'll make our objects a little easier to work with. Move to not found in map, line 41. Radius not found. 143. It's setting the radius every single time. Let's do this. 143. There we go. Many arguments. Now what? There. Okay, need the equal sign. It still raises the question, where's my circle? Put the mouse down here at the origin, hit escape. Where's my circle? It should be right down there. Radius 20, pen size 2, reasonable color. Left, bottom, diameter, color. That should be drawing my circle. Let's see. Debugging is fun. There's a puzzle in here somewhere. No. Well, that's a weird thing to say. does it think the diameter is 2020? Because it thinks the radius is a string. So don't know why that thing is not erasing. Okay, so 20 times 2 is obviously 40, but the string 20 times 2 is 2020. So it's not parsing that number as a string. See right there. Probably just got stuck at some point with all the serializing and deserializing. Save that as a numerical 20. And there's our cute little circle. Hit escape. You are seeing JSON file. Radius is 77, a numerical 77. So if we rerun, everything's like it should be. Okay, back on track. Now I want to be able to tell it where to save and load. How do we want to do that? All right, let's play with some text buttons. Draw a button with a caption. Oh, is there a demo for this? There is a demo. The text-based dialog system. Let's see a file dialog. Ooh, cool. Do that again. So we can make text buttons and they are clickable, and also we have a file dialog for selecting a file, which will be really nice for being able to reload a scene JSON. So let's look at the demo code. Demo code is usually at the very bottom of the file. So we can make a message box whenever we want to just by doing that. And so the dialog is modal, I think. Yeah, when you get to the show, that part is where it becomes modal, runs its own loop until it gets response. And we have the file dialog make. Okay, we're going to do this in a couple of phases. First of all, let's see if we can just do this to get it to show a file dialog. And have the user hit the F key if you, or F or L or something if you want to open up the file dialog. Am I importing text util? Need more utils. Util. Okay, so we're going to respond to student O. O for open. Create the file dialog, call the show, and I guess hit says which button you press on the file dialog. And then it'll print out whatever we selected. So we run this, O, there's file dialog, we can select a file, cancel, or select it, says what we selected. Neat, okay. Then we are going to do that. We're just going to load whatever file the user selects, which could get messy. Might end up crashing the program, but that's okay. And then we won't need this anymore. And instead of saving directly to the scene.json file, we want to save to whatever file was most recently loaded, I think. And I just overwrote. How do we get the file name out of the dialog? The selection. There's no redo, so we're just gonna have to copy and paste. Okay. That's okay. Got our scene. Not going to load, we're not going to automatically load a file when you run the program anymore. We're going to let the user decide, which is going to miss with, like, we won't be able to drag the circle around because we won't know that there, even know if there is a circle. But we'll get back to that. File name is not null on exit, then save. Although I'm probably going to make that also, I'm probably going to remove this part also when we get a proper save dialog, save UI. And test. I'm still seeing my objects. Why am I seeing my objects? I should be seeing no objects. Because we cleared this out, so it's not making anything. It is saved. There's no file name. It's probably keeping the scene object from the last run, so let's clear that out. Okay, no scene, cool. O for open, select our scene file, nothing. Well, that wasn't what I was hoping for. Let's try setting it on the globals. That's probably what went wrong. And yeah, I've actually had this problem before. You could, if you're retrieving a variable, a global variable, you can just give the name. But if you're assigning a global variable, you need to say globals dot. Otherwise, it's going to create a locally scoped variable with that same name. O for open. Select our scene. Ta-da! Of course, we can't move it anymore because the program isn't aware of any objects being selectable. We're going to come back to that. I want to work out how we're going to save. go down here and see that there's this dialog, it makes buttons. We'd like to make buttons. You see that the draw function is printing some buttons for us. No, that's a dialog button class. Can we just reuse that? Let's see if we can reuse the dialog button class in our own program. Button has a track hit. Button is visible and button contains mouse. And what does button track hit do? While mouse button should exit if there's no mouse button pressed. And then if it contains the mouse, it's going to change the color and draw the button. Draw the button again at the end. I'm trying to tell if we need to do that mouse tracking before we just call track hit. I don't think we do. I think we can just use track hit. So where are we creating the buttons? Taking these bits of code that I want and stuffing them in a text editor. And then where is it initially drawing the buttons? Button, button, button. So it's setting a color. So it's doing all of that to draw a button. If it's the OK button, it gives it a different color. It's setting the X value here, but not the Y. Oh, it is setting the Y. And then we're drawing the button. So we have initialize, draw, and we should have a check. And I think that we can just do button track hit. All right, let's experiment with this. I want to stick a button in the top left of the screen. Well, ideally 2 buttons, save and load. Xutil, yes. A load button. Call it open button. So that will create our two buttons. And we need to do the initial draw for both buttons, which I think we'll just do here until I get a better idea. Button X is 0. Button Y should be equal to text height minus 1. Like the number of rows. Is it? Text display, what is your size? Oh, I don't remember. But we have our handy dandy wiki. So we have 26 rows. The top row is 25. Actually, that should be the save button. Open button X, it should be, I guess, save button equals to save button's width. So just scoots it over to the right. And the Y is 0. No, excuse me, the Y is 25. And then draw that. We'll only need to assign the text color once. So that should draw the buttons. They won't be reactive. And they're there at the top. Then we need to actually do something with that. In our on update, we'll also check the buttons. If we're trying to save, trying to open, we're going to be doing all of this stuff. let's see what that gives us. Nothing. That actually gives us nothing. So we're missing something. Let's look at our example again. So we have dialog buttons, and they are successfully drawing. The dialog is class is creating some buttons. You have a draw function. Just draws the background, draws the title, and draws all the buttons. We are successfully drawing buttons. Let's see that track hit again. Track hit is redrawing the button if necessary. What does handle mouse do? Well, by default, nothing. But in the file dialog, it does some stuff. Probably has to do with selecting something from the file list. I'm going to ignore that bit for now. I'm going to keep that bit, and I'm going to see if anything is actually being returned from that, because it could be just be a visual problem. Back to our event loop. So we're going to make sure the mouse button's down, and then do the track hit on both buttons. And if that returns something, we're going to print either save or open, depending on the button. Wow, it only does it once. Ooh. Okay. Save worked. Open does not work. That's kind of exciting. Globals, save button, open button. Oh, here's the problem. I think, no. We're creating the stuff. this a little bit easier to read. Setting the X and Y. It's drawing in the right place. I wonder if we scooted the save button over, would it still work? It does still work, and the open button still doesn't work. Alright, what else am I missing? Drawing it. It's a funny thing, is that they look identical, but something isn't right. Removing the save button, only going to respond to the open button, which should, we're going to place it where the save button was. And now the open button works. Try running those separately. Oh, hold on. It's because the track hit is also doing some other updates inside that function, and the save buttons track hit was blocking that from running, I think. Hold on, let's see if this works. No, open is dead. Okay, never mind. Bad theory. If we only have an open button, then the open button works. If we have two buttons, first button defined seems to be working. Let's define open button first. Oh, that's not nice. There's still this preference for the save button. Comment it out. Comment that out. And now the open button works. Why can't we have more than one button? I should be allowed to have as many buttons as I like. Okay, going back to text util. That gives me an idea. we're going to leave the save button in place, but disable the handler for the save button. And now the open button works. I think something in track hit is hurting us. While mouse dot button. Let's take a look at that mouse dot button thing. This function blocking turns 1 while the mouse is pressed and 0 while it's not. Does it block? No. Something in here is giving us trouble. Because if I remove it's only responding to a single track hit call. Calling track hit on multiple buttons is causing the buttons to not be responsive. Except that the dialog has multiple buttons. I'm going to copy that whole block. Button in buttons. Then it's only calling track hit if the button contains the mouse, which might actually resolve the problem I'm having. This anymore. Okay, if the button is visible and the button contains the mouse, then we'll call track hit on it, otherwise we'll skip it and move to the next one. Save, open. Both buttons are now functional. Not sure what happened there. Crashed. Current program line 164. That's a strange place to crash. Re-enable the open file. Something crashed there. I'm not sure what. I bet button hit wasn't defined. I bet that was the error. Let's make sure it's defined before the loop starts, and then should be better. Save and open. There's our open dialog. Select the scene JSON, and that works. I don't think we have a simple input dialog. I think we're going to need to build an input dialog, which I'm not going to do right now. Here, let's just make sure it's not already defined. A file dialog, that's it. Okay, so what we have done today, we have a new shape class, abstract shape class, that's all of our other shapes are going to inherit from. We fixed the saving, the serializing, saving and loading so that it's using X and Y instead of left and bottom. So it will re-serialize correctly and it's a little easier to manage. And we have the start of a toolbar at the top of the screen. The open button works. The save button doesn't quite work yet. Stick that in there, that'll help. Next time we talk about this program, we are going to work on creating an input dialog so we can enter a file name when the save button is pressed. And then we'll work on getting more, like we'll have to re-enable the ability to select an object and move it around the screen and resize it. So that'll be coming up soon. And thanks for joining me. Hope to see you next time.